I mean the young ones. Well, it all sounds very good, doesn't it? But just look around you. It's trash! I am an antichrist.
It's 1978 and the Sex Pistols are gobbing on everyone in range. Punk is taking Britain by storm, and for the first time since the hippies 10 years earlier, revolution is in the air. Kids everywhere are kicking against the establishment, and Johnny Rotten is an antichrist, not a celebrity. Everything seemed possible in the year before Mrs. Thatcher arrived to put a stop to all that. And this is where the story of the young ones starts.
I'm on board the Freedom Bus, heading for Good Time City, and I haven't even paid my fare!
At Manchester University, drama student Rick Mayall was inspired by the spirit of punk to drop the C from his name and team up with fellow student Adrian Edmondson, performing with the comedy group 20th Century Coyote.
The whole idea of anything straight was a joke. The idea wanted to go on television. I don't think so.
After graduating from uni, Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson went to London's Soho, where news was getting out about a new club called the Comedy Store. It put a drawing pin in a cushion of comfortable mainstream comedy provided by Tarby, Monkey and O'Connery. Rick and Ade formed their own double act and jumped straight in. The Comedy Store was a breeding ground for the next generation of talent, a brat pack of funsters. Inspired by its success, Peter Richardson persuaded his partner Nigel Planer and other new wave comedians to open a new club above Raymond's Review Bar in Soho. So it was that the comic strip was launched, starring Richardson and Planer, Rick Mayall and Ade Edmondson, the female duo Jennifer Saunders and Dawn French, and a loudmouth shiny-suited Bolshevik called Alexis Sale.
Yakina! Yakina! Yakina!
Fantastic moment in time. Suddenly there was this place where everybody could do things like that. People were generally obsessed with writing new material for next week, trying new stuff out, and most of it was shit.
But the comedy clubs did become a huge success with London's Time Out crowd and soon attracted BBC interest. Not from the comedy bosses, but further down the food chain, a fledgling producer called Paul Jackson.
I think the first night I saw Alexi, I certainly saw Rick and Ade performing as 20th Century Coyote. I saw Nigel Planer and Peter Richardson performing, and I loved it. I really thought, this is fantastic, this is different, it really made me laugh. And so I went back a couple of times, and then second or third time I went and had a drink with them and said, is anybody from television talking to you guys?
Although not long out of assistant floor management, Paul Jackson was the someone from television who managed to get these bright new comedians onto the screen in a 1980 show called Boom Boom! This marked the official debut of alternative comedy on television, as Rick, Ade, Nigel Planer and Peter Richardson performed some of the characters they'd been developing at the comic strip.
So you've been playing like this for some time, have you?
What, is anything wrong, officer?
Could be.
It was also the TV audience's first exposure to Britain's most notorious students.
What's your name?
Neil.
Neil.
R.I.K., Rick's character, Rick, R.I.C.K., was based on aspects of his own personality, and that was, one of his great skills, finding his sort of inner monstrous qualities and turning them into comedy creations.
Right. My name's Vic, okay? Shut up.
It was also based on someone that he'd seen in the Fringe Club at the Edinburgh Festival, who stood up and started declaiming poetry and then got very angry when people laughed or didn't pay attention.
Whenever I'm near to the theatre, Shut up!
And the character was sort of born out of that.
Hello.
Nigel had a character called Neil.
This number's sort of about a big depression that I had. Sort of half an hour ago.
Talked about all the tropical diseases he'd got when he'd taken the magic bus to India, which was, in fact, what had happened to Nigel.
When I'm down, you kick me further. You kick me further on down.
and Ade Edmondson appeared as the more violent half of a double act with Rick called the Dangerous Brothers.
My name is Richard Dangerous, and this is Adrian Dangerous.
And Alexis Sale appeared as a sort of people's poet.
Hello, John, got a new motor? Hello, John, got a new motor?
And it was on the back of that, having looked at that and thought, we've seen our acts on telly now, but it didn't make very exciting telly. It wasn't exciting as what it was in the clubs, in the Comedy Store and in the comic strip.
You just couldn't get the excitement of live performance on television.
I suddenly thought, I don't know where it came from, I just thought, well, that'd be a bloody good idea, wouldn't it be great if all these guys were living together?
So one night at home, Rick and his then girlfriend Lisa Mayer cobbled together the first ever script of The Young Ones.
The first script I saw with literally coffee cup marks on it was a bit sprawling. It lacked discipline in its presentation. And I had said this to Rick, but not with any particular vehemence. I'd said, we need to shake this up a little bit. And he came to me subsequently and said, do you mind if I bring in another writer? And I said, no, why? Who is he? Why?
I needed someone to churn out gear. You know, I'd have the ideas, some laughs, and so would Lisa, but I needed someone to churn out the gear. So we could say, no, yeah. And so I phoned up Ben.
Ben Elton also studied at Manchester University, 2 years below Rick and Ade on the same drama course. He also had a job on a production line, bashing out plays.
Rick had seen a number of my plays at university at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and he said, he rang me up and said, we've got a chance to do something. Paul Jackson, the producer at the BBC, has asked us to produce a pilot of anything. Do you want to come in on it?
What happened next could best be described as creative differences. The upshot was that Peter Richardson decided his talents wouldn't be put to best use in The Young Ones. So alongside Rick, Vivian and Neil, the part of Mike was taken by Christopher Ryan. Paul Jackson was excited by the pilot, but would those TV bosses be equally impressed?
They didn't get it. I think it's fair to say nobody really quite knew what it was. I loved it. I was absolutely thrilled with it, and it was what we'd set out to do.
And I remember walking away with my arm around Ben, thinking, I don't know if I said it or not, but I remember thinking, I don't care if nobody likes this, because I think it's fantastic.
Even so, The Young Ones could have been drowned at birth, but Paul Jackson had a point to prove.
I'd shown this tape to the man who was in charge of youth programming at the BBC at the time, a man called Mike Bolland. After we'd shot it, I'd gone to a youth conference or something with Mike, and I'd shown this tape. Mike got it straight away. Said, it's fabulous, I love this. A couple of months later, he's poached to go to Channel 4 to run their entertainment. And of course, very smartly and absolutely correctly, he goes and contacts these people because he knows the BBC's not doing anything with them. And he discovered Pete Richardson. I think that Rick was still very committed to Young Ones, was still hoping it would happen, but he got hold of Pete and Rich and French and Saunders by this time had emerged as part of the group. And he gave them a series, which was the comic strip. And in fact, the first ever comic strip went out on the first night of Channel 4. Five Go Mad in Dorset went out on the first night.
The comic strip Presents starred not only Peter Richardson, Jennifer Saunders, Dawn French and Robbie Coltrane, but also Rick, Ade and Nigel. It finally rang a bell.
And the BBC boss said, hang on a minute, those are those blokes on that tape, aren't they? And they phoned me up and said, again, can you get the other 5 shot quick enough to beat BBC Channel 4 on air? Well, in fact, we didn't. I think we went on just before. We went on within a week of Channel 4 opening. We went on with our full 6. Channel 4 only had the 1 comic strip. We got our full 6 on air, and that was the first series.
Once in every lifetime comes a love like this. Oh, I need you, you need me. Oh, my darling, can't you see, young one?
And when the first episode of The Young Ones went out, there's a different feeling happens when something's actually broadcast and you're aware that this is on telly. It's not like watching the video. You're suddenly aware this is actually on telly. I can't believe it. And I was aware that we were creating a stir.
It's a revolution! Hi, kids!
What was good about the characters in The Young Ones was that although they were demonstrably massively overblown, they did have a root in truth. I mean, you know, we'd all just been students fairly recently, and, you know, the characters that you meet at university, particularly Rick, the sort of, you know, desperate wannabe lefty, who's actually deeply reactionary at heart, and the minute he graduates will immediately sort of revert to type.
You'll be hearing from my solicitors in the morning. I'm going to write to my MP.
But you haven't got an MP, Rick. You're an anarchist.
Well, then I shall write to the lead singer of Echo and the Bunnymen.
Eat the telly.
The sort of I hate everything and I'm going to eat it character, you know, which is Vivian. I mean, you do see those at universities, sort of, you know, I'm sure you see them everywhere.
Shut up, you bastard!
Oh, heavy, heavy, heavy!
Another housemate given to labelling his lentils was Nigel Planer's Neil, who'd lost his woolly hat since Boom Boom, but still had heavy suicidal tendencies.
I thought you were dead!
Well, that's no reason to hassle me on the toilet.
When Rick and Vivian weren't terrorising Neil or killing each other, they spent their time looking up to the short guy with the shades and the business plan, Mike.
With Mike the Cool Person, really, it was written for Pete Richardson, the fourth person in the comic strip gang. I think it was a great character, and I always thought that Chris did an unbelievable job with it.
Get lost.
I am lost. That's why I'm here. Here, there's no chance of using your toilet, is there?
No.
I thought not. That's why I pissed in your garden.
The other regular characters who came into the house via unorthodox means were all played by Alexis Sale.
Let me in, boys!
As the Pulowski family, he hijacked the programme every week.
Greetings from South Africa.
Come on, woman out. Come on. Quick. Come on, woman out. A pain in the arse.
Alexis' style of delivery and type of humour wasn't really the same as Rick and Aid's.
Excuse me, is this a tea shop?
No, sir.
Well, that gets knackered then, innit?
Although he was part of the movement, his career sort of went off on a different way from the rest.
And they all talk about me behind me back.
I hate him.
He drinks like a fish.
He's got no talent. Alexi who?
So I think probably that is a sign of the fact that he wasn't really as integrated as the rest were with the scene.
If Alexis Sale seemed an alien invader, it may have been because the other four were a classic tight-knit group. As word got round about the young ones and millions of kids discovered the existence of BBC Two, the show started attracting the fanatical support that's usually reserved for rock bands. Schoolyards buzzed with the exploits of Rick, Vivian, Neil and Mike, and people started to read all sorts of meanings into their relationship.
A lot of people liken the young ones to a family, with sort of Neil as the mum and Mike as the dad, and Rick and Aid as the naughty children, Rick as a little girl.
He's incredible. I'm not a girl at all.
If they are a family, the young ones must be the most dysfunctional, not to say homicidal, ever. The show seemed to be smashing up all the rules of sitcom.
Sorry, Viv.
That's okay now. It was bound to happen sooner or later.
On the face of it, this was a completely different planet to the one inhabited by Terry and June and The Good Life.
No! I'm not watching the bloody Good Life! Bloody!
Of course it falls into the rules of sitcom because we had sets and we had characters and we had a situation. I mean, Dad's Army is probably a more weirdly original idea. I mean, ours was in a house on a sofa.
Bloody hell. No room for me on the sofa as usual. I have to sit on the rickety chair.
I mean, the fact that it was regularly set on fire or eaten by a hamster or whatever doesn't really make any difference.
Oh, Christ. Boring!
What it was saying was quite surreal, but it looked like an ordinary sitcom.
Oh, look, Rick, it's only 5
No,
minutes.
Rick, it's only 5 minutes. Tell that to Roger Bannister!
Roger, it's only 5 minutes.
Oh, really? How interesting.
The surreal demands of the young ones made it a dream for the special effects department.
Special effects loved you.
Well, that's just typical!
Because you say, I need a piano to fall through the floor. They say, yeah, sure. Tomorrow morning or this afternoon? These guys are fantastic. And so we were playing, as we've always been.